Okay, so one additional thing you can do with this, the link to this props, navigate, and send to home, you can pass parameters. And sometimes, that it's really, really useful. For example, I'm going to go maybe to, home. I'm going to do it here. So of course, when we click this, we want to go to users. What we can do, we can pass a second argument. And this one is going to be an object with, maybe some kind of information. Let's say that I want to go to users and I'm passing the user ID of the user, maybe the user name, and it's going to be Francis, and I don't know, user last name. All right, that, seems cool. All right. Of course, if I'm just passing the properties and reload the application, go to users, nothing really happens. What I need to do, I need to make, do something in order to catch these properties. Of course, you get several ways to do this. Now, one thing, and just let me show you. Of course, let's say that I want to console log the this.props. So console log, and then this.props. All right. Okay, so props, sorry. So if I reload, of course, nothing happens. If I do Control D or Control M on Android, I can do debug.js remotely. It's going to take a second. I'm going to inspect. And if we go to console, let me just reload the simulator. Let's go again. All right. So I'm getting, the initial props. Let me try it again. I go to users and we get, the props. And notice that we are getting the navigation with a bunch of other things. You can dispatch, you can go back just like we did before. We can do a lot of things. Push, you can push to a different screen. Again, this just works like a link. We're going to do, and we're going to talk about this later, and actually we're going to use it. Not all of the options, of course, but okay, this is the way you get, with the console log, you get by default, just with the package, just with right out of the box. I'm not going to run the Android, at least on Mac, because it's not working. It's not working very well, so I'm not going to open it, but in theory you should be getting the same thing. All right, okay. Now what I want to do, I don't want to do this because if you notice, this one, it kind of uses a lot of resources. I don't use it because I don't like it and it uses a lot of resources, so I'm going to stop. All right. So sometimes you just want to get a console log, right? You just want to see something and you don't want to run the native debugger. So what you can do, console log, you can do console warn. And this is something I use all the time in my personal life, right? I'm going to go here, reload it, go to users, and we're forcing a warning, and I get the data I need right here. I just needed a console. All right, okay, that's good. So I'm going to, of course, we can see right here on the console log.props that we get navigation state params, user ID, username, Francis, and we get all the params that we are sending. So we have it inside navigation. All right, that's okay. So I'm going to close it. I'm going to minimize. I don't need this right now. I'm just going to delete it. Right, so when we enter here, what we can do, we could create, and all of this again is the example you get on the documentation. I'm not just making this up. I'm going to go to user ID and say, okay, I want to enter this, .props, .navigation, just like this, dot, and I want to get param. This is the way it works, get param. Then open and close, and you need to specify what you want to get. If we remember, it was user ID. So I'm going to put user ID, and that's it. I'm going to copy pretty much everything and just change the names. I don't want to type everything again. So this one is going to be username. So I'm going to copy username. I'm going to paste username, and same thing right here. And I'm going to do same for this one. I'm going to go to home, last name, and last name. All right. So, all right. So get param, that we know that works. So now, of course, we have 3 different variables with the value we want and, the value we are passing from home to users. So you just make a reference right here. So I'm going to go, I am the user screen, and, maybe add some text right here at the bottom. Nothing fancy. I'm going to say user ID. I know that this is boring and this is going to work, but I got to finish this. So I'm going to copy this one, paste it at the bottom, and say, you know, name, of course, name, and this one is the user last name. Same thing for the last name. I'm going to put it right here, and this one is going to say last name. Right. Let me make it right. All right. So I'm going to save it, reload the application, see what happens. I'm going to go to users, and we get the data. So that's good, you know. Now there's one thing you get right here at the top, and this might happen to you in the future. Sometimes, of course, you're going to do a fetch or maybe a network request with Axios or something like that, and you're going to get a response, and then maybe you want to pass the button, the params to the buttons. All right. Sometimes that information might fail, or it might come empty. So you have a way to define the default value for this one. So if you're clicking on the link, going to users, and you don't really have a user ID because maybe, I don't know, something happened, you get the second option, which is, you know, a default option. So in this case, if I'm not passing the user ID and I reload the application, let me reload it. Okay, it's not reloading. Sometimes it fails. So let me bring it again. And this is pretty common with the simulator. It's not that I'm just, you know, dumb. Something happens, sometimes, you know, it will not do it. So notice I'm actually trying to reload or bring the console, not really happening. So let me pause the video, rebuild the project, and be right back. If this happens to you, you will pretty much need to either wait or rebuild it. All right, so everything is up and running again. And told you this will happen to you. Doesn't matter if you have the fastest computer ever. Sometimes it's just, you know, it fails and you need to rebuild. Very common. So okay, so if I reload it, that works. Go to users, go back home, everything works. So now what I want to show you is that we are doing this right here, but if you want to just do it here, it's gonna work. So go to users, and we get not available because I'm not passing anything, of course, but you can see it working. Right? Go to users, get 12. So of course you can do this logic backwards, and now this non-available, now the default value will be important. So let's say I'm home, I'm gonna pass it, you know, the different params from child to main screen. So I'm gonna say, I don't know, message, something like that, message. All right, so this one is gonna say hello guys, doesn't matter. So now we are sending this param from users, which is the child, to home. So if I copy this, because I don't want to type everything again, and I go maybe at the bottom and add the text, I'm gonna say, okay, I want to show that message right here. So if you think this through, we know that when we start the application, we start at home. We don't start on users. So how are you going to get the value from this param if it never kicked in? Right? Makes sense. So if I reload the application, now we get the default value. So if I go to users and then go back home, then we will be sending some params back to the prop. So I'm going to go home, and then we get hello guys. So again, this property now, it's kind of a little bit important. All right. Okay. So this is the most basic stuff that we need to know to make, you know, React navigation work. Of course, this is going to get much bigger on the next few sections. Now what I want to do, I want to talk about the navigation bar. And this one, it's really important for the stack navigator. For the other ones, I mean the swipe, the slide, you know, I don't remember the name right now, the drawer type of navigation, you don't get a header by default. You just get it with the stack. And when you're working with the tab, you don't get it either. We have a way to make it work. I will show you later, much later, but we don't get it. So if you want to create just right out of the box, some kind of a application that has a little bit of navigation and you get a default header, then the stack navigation is for you. All right, so let's go to the next one, and I would like to talk about the navigation header. So how can we style it, maybe add a logo and, you know, the color and everything else. So let's go to the next one and do this.